Yo,
Hey, is it working?
I can hear you. You can hear me?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, good. Then yeah, it sounds like it's working then.
Great.
Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order. Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com.
Play Whiskey Wednesday, Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26. Each week, you can win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof. And the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com. And you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long.
Bringing to you the best stories from icons in the bourbon industry, it's Bourbon Pursuit. Now here are your hosts, Ryan and Kenny.
Welcome back to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit Podcast. My name's Kenny Coleman, and I'm joined with me as always with my buddy Ryan. How you doing today, friend?
Doing great, Kenny. How's it going for you?
It's going. We're very excited to be down here on Whiskey Row around this area because there's a lot happening in downtown Louisville right now. There's a lot of renovations. There's a lot of new bourbons they're actually shouldn't say new bourbons, but there's companies that are buying all these new properties in downtown, and it's becoming almost a secondary stop of the bourbon or the bourbon trail to say, we're not going to go to all these different places out in Bardstown and Loretto, but instead, Louisville might be the new home of being able to come and experience all these distilleries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's nice to have a central location where you can kind of just show up to Louisville downtown, and you can go for the Evan Williams Center's there now. And then also Angel Envy is going to be down here, and Michter's, I think, also. But it's going to be great to have these locations, walking distance from area attractions. So it's really neat what's happening. Super excited about it.
Yeah, because if you think about the Bourbon Trail, when you want to do it, I mean, it's about 200 miles worth of driving, right? I mean,
exactly. Here you can stumble home from, the distillery instead of worrying about driving. But if you need drivers, get Minjulip Tours.
Minjulip Tours, you got Uber, you got everything around here now. But I'm joined, we have 2 guests today. We have from Angel's Envy, we have Kevin Curtis. We also have Kyle Henderson. So both of these individuals have been kind enough to give us a moment of their time. And we want to kind of just get a history about you all. So Kevin, I'm going to kind of look at you first. So tell us about your story into bourbon. You know, we've done some research on you. We learned about your times at, Woodford Reserve and Brown-Foreman. But let's talk about like how you really got into that space first off.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I finished my degree at U of L fairly late in life. And I just happened to get a biology degree and was looking for something to do. And a friend of a friend worked at Brown-Foreman in research and development. Told me about they had some openings there for a lab technician. Went in, talked to them. They hired me, and I just happened to start in a group there called process development. And what we did a lot of in process development is we worked on yeast propagation, mashing, fermentation, distillation, and, different grain bills and recipes. And so I quickly got a little dose of, distillation life on a pilot scale. I'd been there probably 6 months or so and heard about this old property out in Woodford County that Brown-Foreman had purchased. They were going to renovate and reopen a distillery out there. So it happened to be the LeBrow & Graham Distillery. And Brown-Foreman had a lengthy history with that property going way back into the 40s and 50s and 60s. So, I was, again, a lab tech in R&D, and I wasn't making any money. And I thought
you kind of just fell into it, right?
I wanted to do something new, and I was ready for a change, and so I jumped up and down and raised my hand up in the air and shouted and said, "Hey, I want to go do that." Thinking I just want to go out there and do anything. I'll be an operator, and
And just like most people in the industry right now, you couldn't imagine how it would end up to the point we are now.
Yeah. Yeah. My entire career is just, in my opinion, I feel like I've just stumbled through a series of lucky breaks and just been in the right place at the right time.
You definitely didn't have this like wake up one day, hey, I'm going to be master distiller one day.
No, not at all. I wanted to go back to school and finish my degree, and one thing led to another. And again, like I said, right place at the right time. So I wanted to go out there, and a gentleman named Dave Shurek, who was leading up the project and going to be the plant manager, talked to him a few times. He liked me, and I really didn't have much management experience, but and all I knew about whiskey was what I had learned in R&D there. But he tapped me to go out there and be the production supervisor, and showed up, and we started tearing the place down and building it back up and got it started. We hired some more guys and opened up our bottling facility. Then we opened up the distillery, and everything just sort of happened. I ended up spending almost 14 years out there.
I was about to say, now it's history. Now Woodford is definitely one of the biggest brand names that are very recognized out there, and it's you could almost say that that's your claim to fame, right? I mean, you helped build that brand up to what it is.
Yeah, that's, I got my start there. I learned a lot there. Being a part of Brown-Foreman, I had exposure to a lot of different parts of the industry. The best part about being at Woodford Reserve was the fact that I was working for Brown-Foreman, a large company, but at the same time, I was working at a facility and I was responsible for distillation, all the entire distillery from bringing in grain to the finished product, to getting it in the barrels. I was in charge of the maturation warehouses, bottling, processing, shipping and receiving, maintenance, everything from, the boilers and air compressors, down to the toilets in the visitor center.
So you could write the whole operations manual.
So, I learned really my mechanical skills, improved out there. I learned pretty much everything I know. out there. And then I was lucky enough to be pulled into the Early Times, which is now called the Brown-Foreman Distillery here in Louisville. Spent a couple of years out there, whole different side of the industry, large volume distillery. That's all I was focused on, was making whiskey. I wasn't involved with, the barreling, the warehousing, any of the bottling, anything like that. So
what do you think of, your time at Brown-Foreman and Woodford Reserve? Well, how has that really prepared you for what you've taken on now in this role as the operations manager here at Angel's Envy?
Well, like I said, I was able to learn, I'm not an expert at anything by any means.
Well,
we'll never claim to be.
It's a master of none and jack of all trades. So.
I learned a little bit, quite a bit about almost everything related to our industry, filtration, quality control, safety, the environmental aspect, TTB reporting and record keeping.
You lost me right there.
There's just just levels and levels of different things that are going on in this industry that, a lot of people don't realize. But you have to kind of stay on top of all of it. And so, this is going to be just another great opportunity for me to be involved in another startup. And as far as the distillery is concerned, so at our facility that we're building here, just a couple blocks away, we're going to have, same thing, a full, actually larger distillery than I started up at Woodford. We'll have bottling, we'll have processing. We have a barrel warehouse, that we just renovated and opened up on 7th Street Road, that will be loading with barrels. Of course, then you've got all the processing and bottling and the extra element of the port wine barrel finish that we have with this.
We want to get into that a little bit later, right? Let's save some of that as a teaser for a little bit later in the show. But let's kind of move over to Kyle a little bit. Kyle, this is one thing that Kevin just said is, you guys are a startup, but one of the things that it's very, there's a similar story between pretty much every distillery you go to, is that there's family lineage everywhere, right? And even though that Angel's Envy is very, very new to the world and very new to this realm, there's still a family lineage here. So talk about, we can talk a little about Lincoln a little bit, your relationship and kind of maybe that's how you got into bourbon, but let's go ahead and kind of get your story about how you got into this.
Sure. Well, of course, Lincoln and my dad and myself, it's 3 generations now, that have been or are involved in the brand. But my start itself, it was kind of unexpected. I was at Florida State working to get my biology degree, or biochemistry, I guess at the time. I wanted to go to medical school. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon.
That took a hard left turn.
Yeah, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to, be a James Andrew, doing sports medicine for famous athletes and things. And somewhere around my junior year, my dad and my parents and my family, my brothers and things, they had all lived in Florida at the time. They moved back to Kentucky for my dad to start this brand with my grandfather. I was still at Florida State. I was on my career path, and I realized, man, this sucks. I've got 6 more years of school, and my family's back up in Kentucky doing, this fun stuff. And
really
I
cool
wish
job.
I was there. So my dad kind of gave me an opportunity to help him out and do a few things over a summer with him. And I took that opportunity and came up and never left. So I just kind of fell into that too. It was a family thing, but my dad didn't want to push me into this. He wanted me to do my own thing. He didn't want me doing it because he was doing it. So he was a little apprehensive about really bringing me into it because he didn't want to make me, feel like I was forced into it, which I appreciate now because I think if he had said, go do this, go do that, go do this, I may not be as open to what I'm doing now. I may not be happy where I am. I may not have gotten to where I am happy.
Yeah. That kind of makes you feel like you weren't scarred into doing this and you never want to do it. Right. I can tell you just a personal story in my life. I remember one of the things that my dad got me for Christmas as like a 10-year-old, my dad was a champion wrestler and all these different things and, wrestled the Marines. So he was very much wanted me to go into that as a sport. And so even at 10 years old, he bought me a bench press set. And one of the things that he did as like a punishment when I was a pretty crappy kid sometimes. And what a punishment, he would make me go down there and lift weights and hold weights over my head until I could no longer hold them anymore. And it scarred me so long that I hate working out. To this day, I still do not work out.
That's your excuse?
That's my excuse.
That's a good one. I'll take that one.
Yeah. But no, it's kind of funny you say that, he didn't press you into it. You kind of just found your way here.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. And now he offered the opportunity. He was involved with some of the craft distilling and the new distillers programs and associations and things like that. Through that relationship, he got me an internship at a distillery in Virginia, Catoctin Creek, with Scott and Becky Harris, who are still up and running and cranking out. And they opened a new distillery recently, and they're doing a lot of cool stuff. I was able to do about a week-long internship with them, run their still with them and clean out the fermenters and, do some grunt work. But it was really my first foray into the production side of the industry. I'd always seen my grandfather traveled a lot, especially when I was around. He was the master distiller at Woodford, that I remember. So he was always out promoting. He was in Europe. He was in Japan every other week. He was doing this event, doing that event. And, that I remember, he didn't spend a whole lot of time in the distillery running equipment and things like Kevin was doing. He was more, while he still did some of that, I think, what I remember, he was more face of the brand, PR stuff. So that was my first experience in Virginia with, holy cow, that still gets really hot. And when you try to clean it, and rye is really sticky and it's hard to clean. And it's really cool seeing some of the reactions when you add the enzyme to the rye or the malt, and breaking down the starches into sugars and things. That's what interests me is science, the how and why of what's happening. So I think while I enjoy the PR and marketing side of it, I think seeing the behind the scenes, the industrial, the true grit in production really helped me enjoy what I do more.
From barrel to bottle, that whole timeline.
Absolutely.
Right?
Now that said, I still love going out to the market and talking to people and promoting the brand and doing all of those things. But I don't think I could give up what I do now if I tried.
Right.
And I literally don't think anybody would let me either. There's, we're still, we're still a pretty small crew. We can't afford to lose too many people. So it's a lot of fun. So
you hit on a little bit about, you were talking about the rye stickiness and all these different things. Now let's talk about your daily jobs here at Angel's Envy. So, Kyle, we'll start back with you again. So what's your role? I mean, we were kind of talking before this, right? You're at the bottling plant, every other day trying to figure out what's going on. So I guess, even with the new buildings that are all kind of being brought up, like what's your job role like now? And what's your job role going to be like in 2015? Actually, you know what? Maybe let's not even get there. Maybe we can come back for a show after it's all up and running. We kind of talk about a little bit differences, but kind of give us an idea of what's going on right now. Like, what's your day-to-day operations? Sure. What do you do?
Sure. Day-to-day right now, we have a contract facility that bottles for us, and we have just recently opened our own in-house bottling facility. So the day-to-day is selecting bourbon barrels to taste, to dump, to then put into port barrels, analyzing the port barrels to ensure that they're still usable for our finishing process, getting them filled, running tests on them to make sure they've reached maturity that we're looking for the finish.
So let's talk about that one a little bit. So when you're looking at a maturity of a port finish barrel that you're going to be basically using to age your bourbon a little bit longer, what do you look for in that? Like, what's the process? Or is this a little? Maybe,
I mean, it's pretty.
I don't want to edge on the thing of proprietary here, but
our finishing techniques are proprietary. We're one of the few companies that do it on a regular basis. And as far as I know, we were the first one to release it as our core product, American product. It is a finished whiskey. That's all we have. We don't have anything else. You'd look for different things at different times of the year. You look for different things depending on what product you're producing. Are we producing our core product, our flagship port finished bourbon, or are we producing the special blend, which is kind of our riff on a single barrel, where we bring different blends to accounts and let them blend it for their own profile? Or are we doing rye today? Are we doing cask strength, which is an extra aged, extra finished, barrel proof version of the flagship? So depending on what product you're looking for, we do have internal sensory specs we're looking for. We do have a few people that, mainly my dad and myself, but working to get more people involved on who needs to taste and what they're tasting, and building a library and kind of a standard for sensory of what we're looking for. But for the past 4 years, it's kind of been, does that taste good? Yeah. Okay, let's bottle it. And that's
simple, huh?
That's kind of the fun thing of being a small company at that point is it was literally, does it taste good today? Yep. Put it in the bottle.
Ship it.
And that was kind of our brand story. We have on the cork, we have expression 1010 and all these batch numbers and everything. We bottle out of 500-gallon tanks. So the largest amount of whiskey we could dump at one time is about 10 or 12 barrels, something like that, once you add water to proof it down. So you can't mix any more than that. So you're going to have a lot of fluctuations in your taste profile. You can't be exacting when you're doing such minute volumes compared to some of these bigger companies that are doing thousands of barrels at a time. And that's part of the brand. It's a developing taste profile.
Mm-hmm.
If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon.
And Kevin, I guess let's give us a little bit of interest about, right now you're doing a lot with the new warehouses that are being built. And so what's sort of your operations right now in this sort of, I don't want to say it's I guess it's a different phase than maybe what you're used to. Actually, you might be very used to doing.
Honestly, right now, probably my major focus is the distillery. It's a large project. We're putting in a 28-inch column still. We'll be able to do at full capacity. We'll be able to fill a little over 80 barrels a day. So for a downtown, right in the middle of downtown Louisville distillery, it's going to be a very, very good sized distillery. Obviously, it's not a Heaven Hill or a Jim Beam or a Brown-Foreman, one of those size distilleries, but it's going to be a decent sized distillery. Between everything that's going on with that, that's consuming probably the bulk of my time. Kyle, like I said, he handles all the bottling and barreling and production functions as far as that goes. I quickly realized when I started here that, I just kind of stay out of Kyle's way and let him do his thing. He's been doing it for this company longer than I have. I understand the distillation side pretty well, and that's going to be my key focus here. Kyle, he knows what he's doing, and I'm there to help him make contacts or, figure things out when he needs help. Otherwise, he handles all that. And so we're just kind of, like I said, most of my time spent with the project, the actual distillery project. So just my focus is to get that up and running as quickly as we can.
Good. Well, so we'll ask you this question. Since you're really in charge of the day-to-day operations. I kind of want to understand, you came to Angel's Envy for a good purpose. And at this point, it's been I think what we've all seen is Angel's Envy is a huge success, right? We've seen it in the marketplace. Absolutely. And so what do you think that makes Angel's Envy so special? Is it the port barrel finish? Is it, the fluttering wings that you have on the bottle? Is, what is it? The marketing engine behind it? Like, what do you think makes it so special? Why it
all
has
of the above?
Yeah. I mean, you pretty much answered your own question. The package is very unique. It's very pretty. The shape of just without even the decoration and the labels on the bottle, the shape of the bottle speaks to people, I think. Mm-hmm. It just has an organic human figure shape to it. Like it's almost a female or feminine shape to the bottle. It's pretty
manly. Wait
well,
wait a minute.
It stands out on my bar. It towers over.
It's a gorgeous
all the
package. But beyond that, just a port finished bourbon is it's unique, and it's delicious. I've loved port wine for a long, long time. Because
it's a deep wine flavor, right?
Yeah.
It's not just something usual that you can go pick up for like $10 off the shelf, right? I mean, a port wine is something that has a very different taste aspect to it.
It does, and there's a huge variety in port wines. What I've discovered over the years, the unaged stuff. You have stuff that's not very good and then really good. But I really prefer the aged, the 20 and 30-year-old tawny ports and things like that. I love that. I call it, there's a sensory aspect to it. I call, tastes and smells like raisins to me, a really good aged tawny port. And, it's just such a good, characteristic. And what that imparts to our bourbon, just it makes it so nice and so smooth, and just the aroma is incredible, and people are eating it up.
It's not a bad thing to have, right? Yeah, profits are always good.
They're snapping it up. we can barely keep up, so life is good.
Well, if you can barely keep up, I mean, that's one of the great things is that you're buying. You bought the old Yellowstone Distillery warehouse. That's probably where a lot of barrels are going to go age. Is that? I guess kind of give me a rundown of how the operations are going to go. You've got this location right here that's a few blocks away from us. That's going to be the actual distillery here at East Main Street, and then you've got some other different facilities. So kind of give us a verbal map of how everything kind of goes from when it's barreled, and then it goes to the warehouse, and then when it needs to be bottled. Like where's it all going to go? What's the lifespan of a barrel for Angel's Envy then?
Well, so out on 7th Street Road, we have a 10-acre property that used to be part of the Yellowstone Distillery. Anybody from Louisville probably remembers Yellowstone Bourbon. We bought the part of the property that had the barrel warehouses on it. There was one barrel warehouse still standing. We've renovated that. Obviously, upgraded a little bit. We had to add sprinklers, security, and brought that back to life. And we had barrels stored all over the state, and we've recently brought all those back in and put them in our own warehouse. We have room to build a couple more 50,000 barrel warehouses out there. So that's our plan right now, is to get started on one of those as quickly as possible. So in the future, when we start distilling here, as we're filling barrels, we will bring those to those warehouses, age them there, bring them back to this distillery property at 500 East Main is where I'm talking about. And we will, from that point, we will dump the bourbon, finish them in the port wine barrels. That'll happen on site. So, when visitors come, they'll be able to see all of that. And then dump back out of the port wine barrels, process that whiskey, and prepare it for bottling, and bottle it on site. So when visitors come to the site, they'll see everything from, when the grain first comes into the building to the time we bottle it, except for the actual the bourbon aging in the warehouses. But we have plans to try to take people out there to see that.
Is there an anticipated start date of when any listeners can finally come and experience the Angels Envy experience?
Obviously we can't promise anything, but our goal now that we've actually got demolition started and we're actually doing some structural work on the building, our goal is and has been to have this thing up and running by the end of this year. So it's a pretty lofty goal. We got a lot of work to do, and but if the gods are with us and allow it, and a lot of things go right and happen in order. Yeah. The angels watch over us. We'll have it done. But that's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah, as some listeners might not know, and Kyle, I'd love to get your kind of input on this too. There's a huge project going on by the city of Louisville right now to do a lot of renovations for bridges and stuff like that.
That's not that big. It's just the largest infrastructure project the state of Kentucky has ever done. I think.
So it's put a lot of pressure, at least around this area, because I know we've come down here quite a few times, and then you're like, oh crap, well this road's closed today. Oh man, now this one's closed today, and they're tearing down a bridge, they're rebuilding one. What kind of, I guess you could say, has that put a damper on the timeline? Like, how's that really affected it, and how are you trying to work around that?
It definitely delayed us a bit. We bought the property from the state. They had purchased it to expand the interstate, and while they were doing that, we were unable to take control of the property. They wanted to complete what they were doing and basically, be done with what they needed for us to give it to us. So that delayed us taking control and being able to do renovations on the property, which is it's good and bad. One, it delayed us, but two, we don't have to, really, I don't want to say deal, but we don't have to be in their way, and they're not really in our way on that specific site. So it did lose us some time, but I think we'll probably gain some of that back in not overlapping with, their crane has to be here today to lay foundation for this major interstate. That portion of it right by us is complete. But overall, the whole project, it slows things down a lot, because you have closed roads, and we have to close part of Main Street down while we're renovating the building. And every now and then they close Main Street to do renovations on the bridge, and it delays, it may delay equipment coming in, or it may delay something going out, waste going out, or whatever it happens to be. So it's definitely not making it any easier. But it's needed. The city needs the bridge. So the city needs the distillery, though.
Better long term. Once make it easier to get here.
Yes. Well, and one of the benefits of being right there is there's how many hundreds of thousands of cars pass over that bridge every day.
Well, stick up a sign.
We are literally like the second thing you see when you cross the river. You see the baseball field, Louisville Slugger Field, and then look, it's Angels Envy Distillery. Let's go. It's going to be the best advertising you could probably ever ask for.
Absolutely. I couldn't deny that one.
At least.
Yeah. When you come across the bridge at night, it's going to be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
And a show place.
And so I guess there's a common theme in a lot of this, at least with the bourbon industry, is that it's a game of patience, right? You can't rush bourbon. You can't do all these different things to try to make it better and make it faster. And, with the bridge project going on, yes, it slowed us down, but you got to be patient, right? So, has it slowed down your idea of we can make more bourbon because there's a huge influx, and we've got to start planning for 2020 and 2025 and 2035, like all these years. So I guess, has this kind of put a damper on that a little bit?
A little bit. Ideally, like Kyle said, the taking over ownership from the state was delayed quite a bit. There was also part of the property has an alley that runs through it, and the city and or state is going to allow us to close that in and use that as part of our facility. It's actually going to be our tank room. And the problem with that, though, is before we could close on the property, we had settled a lot of things with the state. Well, AT&T had some phone lines or fiber optic lines or network lines or something that ran under that alley. Well, we're going to need to tear that alley up and cover that in.
Yeah, I think you're going to ruin somebody's day if you start cutting. That's for sure.
We ended up having to wait quite a few more months to close on the property, just waiting on AT&T to get their network lines out and and then, give us the go ahead. So that was another huge delay. When you add all that up, we wanted to have this distillery in operation right now.
Mm-hmm.
We should already be distilling.
Right. It is what it is.
Murphy's Law.
I'm sure you talk to all the other people that are the new tenants on Whiskey Row, and they're all feeling the same thing, right?
Oh, sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
when Evan Williams' experience first started, they had their own problems getting started and everything like that. So I think it's just something that everybody's going to have to overcome. You got to realize, I mean, the building that you got it's from like 1900s, right? I mean, it needs a lot of renovations to be able to make it to a point, right? I mean,
it's well over 100-year-old building, and it's in very rough shape. It's been abandoned for a very long time. Like you said, the same thing, Michter's, they've got a huge project on their hands down at 8th and Main. Beautiful building, but, it needed a lot of structural work and they've got quite a bit of work to do to that building just to prepare it to, start the installation. So, but they're full steam ahead. Peerless Distilling, I talk to those guys occasionally and they're doing very well. I'm actually hoping they'll be open and up and running this spring. They're hoping so, and I'm hoping for them. It's been fun watching those guys make that happen. And then with the announcement of Old Forester putting a distillery right here, just another 2 blocks up, it's the momentum and excitement is really building, and I'm really looking forward to the day when all 5 of us are up and running, and
I'm sure
somebody else decides to build another one here, or and right here like Nulu. That seems like a prime area for somebody to open up a distillery.
Yeah, it's great because you can do the tours and stuff, and there's tons of great restaurants and shops and everything. So it's a whole one big long strip.
Yeah, it's gonna in another 2 or 3 years, this whole 2-mile stretch is gonna be a destination.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm sure the city of Louisville is
much like bourbon country is now. So,
right.
Maybe
it's going to be very localized.
Leave a little bit of taxes for you as a nice thank you. That'd be nice. But
that'd be real nice. It's helpful.
Well, guys, we're hitting up about that 35-minute mark. Probably a little bit less than that now. But, I wanted to say thank you again for your time today. Is there anything else that you kind of want to leave with, what you could tell any kind of consumers that are out there that are looking at Angel's Envy on the shelf, and after listening to this, like, what's going to make them go ahead and grab that bottle and try it?
I do. You go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Every day, and I think about Lincoln Henderson, Kyle's grandfather, during the project and building the distillery, and with the warehouse and the little bottling facility we've just opened, and I think about Lincoln a lot. And I remember the days I used to spend with him at Woodford Reserve, and he was such a kind gentleman, full of charm and love and happiness. The guy always had a smile for you, and I just was glad to see you. And he was a true gentleman's gentleman. And I regret that he can't be here for all of this. That makes me a little bit sad. It's bittersweet. But, he had a big hand in helping me get started at Woodford Reserve also. I worked with him as part of the R&D group, and he helped me get started out there, and I learned a lot from him. And it's interesting that when we were working together, he had this idea 15 years ago. He was thinking about barrel, port and sherry and Madeira barrels and brandy barrels and things like that, taking bourbon and finishing them in other types of barrels. And, he was very interested in that then. And it never kind of really went anywhere at the time. So it was a lot of fun to see him in his retirement start this up, and it's and to be a part of it, it's like I've just come full circle in the whole thing. And, I'm back to day one and get to do something really fun with a lot of great people and right here in the middle of Louisville and my hometown. We all have a lot to thank Lincoln for in this whole thing. And that's what I always try to remember.
Yeah, that's a good kind of question for you, Kyle, too, since you are, the grandson, since Lincoln, if anybody didn't know, Lincoln passed away in 2013. So I guess what's it like, without your grandfather here, and how you want to carry on that legacy? So what do you kind of see as that next?
What's it like?
Forward?
It's kind of
some big shoes to fill.
It's depressing,
maybe?
It's he was a big role in my dad and myself in our lives and in the career and in this industry. But I think we have managed to continue on pretty well. We've continued to manage the brand and grow the brand with our team, and the marketing and sales and increasing production and everything. And we are taking some of the ideas that he left with us and some ideas that we developed with him together and some ideas that we've kind of developed out of his ideas, and we're running with them. So it's one of the reasons to kind of watch and see what we do. Right now we've got the port finished bourbon. We have the Caribbean rum cask finished rye whiskey. We may or may not have tasted a sherry finish last week.
I wasn't going to ask for proprietary
I don't know what
information.
you're talking about.
It's funny because I even have in here, I said I want to talk about the rum barrels, I want to talk about all these things, but what else is new is coming? So
that is the only thing I will talk about, just because we literally tasted it last week. And Kevin literally today said, man, I'm thinking about that sherry barrel. It's
crazy good.
It was pretty good. Yeah. We're all about trying different things.
Mm-hmm.
We'll test a few barrels, and if it turns out terribly, fortunately nothing has. I don't know what we'll do. Christmas presents, I guess.
To say.
But
special bottling.
We'll do different finishes. We'll do different whiskeys. We've worked with the Filson Historical Society, Mike Veach, a local bourbon historian. We're working with the Speed Art Museum and old, historical records on old recipes, old yeasts, and mixing that with new technology, developing yeast to create a specific profile, looking at really unique barrel finishes. Bourbon barrels, we get to use them once by law. We can't use them again to age bourbon. So we sell them to Scotland. We sell them to the Caribbean for rum. We sell them to Mexico for tequila. Well, what happens if we get those back and then finish bourbon in those again, or finish another whiskey? We don't know, but that was one of the things my dad, my grandfather, literally, that was kind of a top on our agenda was, I wonder what a tequila finished bourbon would taste like.
Mm-hmm. So do you really look at you guys and your brand as the infusion brand?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we're not the only ones, but I think we're at the forefront of that kind of cutting edge there. It's fun, and it's really cool to see what a smaller brand can do that is harder for a larger company to do. We don't have as many committees and hoops to jump through, and we're not quite as worried about the bottom line all the time,
mm-hmm.
As some of these bigger guys are. They've got huge parent companies. They're publicly owned. They have stockholders to answer to. We have to answer to ourselves pretty much. So we have a lot more fun, in my opinion. Now, I know those guys have fun doing what they do, but we
take more risk.
Yeah, we can take a risk, knowing that if we lose, 4 barrels of whatever we finished, we lost 4 barrels. It's not the end of the world. Well, hopefully not.
If there's some listeners out there that are going to disagree with you.
It is fun to make a decision in 4 minutes instead of 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Of meetings.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And emails. And that's a good
all
time.
the bureaucracy of corporate.
But yeah, just to wrap it up, I got to say, if to the people that knew Lincoln, they know what I was just talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
And for those of you out there that never got to meet him, I'm sorry, you're lost. He was a gem.
That's fantastic.
And to get back to your question, you said why I choose it. It's because it's good. I love Angel's Envy.
Well, thank you.
It's really tasty. So
Yeah.
It means we're doing something right.
Yeah.
There you go.
What's inside the bottle?
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys again.
Thank you.
If you enjoy what you're listening to, make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes. If you also want to be a guest on the show, make sure you get in contact with us. You can reach us on Twitter at Bourbon Pursuit or on Instagram at Bourbon Pursuit as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Any suggestions, feedback, suggestions for interviews, just let us know. Appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time.